All right, everybody. Hello and welcome back. Now that I'm only doing one show a week because I've just been so crazy busy lately, it feels like forever between each one of these. But this week's show is going to be a banger, absolutely for sure. I just started following the gentleman that's going to be on the show today about a couple weeks ago, and he was so kind that we were able to organize this pretty far out in advance. But yeah, we got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the death of Charlie Kirk. But I know my guest today is well informed about El Salvador and kind of how to restore order in a country. And this has been something that I've just been absolutely fascinated by, and I really want to learn more about, particularly in the case of Bukele, because it's crazy when you learn more and more about it. And I'm sure everybody probably watched the Tucker interview with Bukele, where they took the murder rate down from, I think it was 6 people per 1,000 down to like 1 person per 1,000, or it was something crazy like that. So how can we make America look like that? Because it's starting to seem like we're definitely drifting away from that here in the States. But, regardless, we still have a wonderful country. And I got to be optimistic because I don't plan my daughter to be my only kid. I plan to have many, many more. And hopefully, they inherit a great country from their grandparents and their parents. So before we get to the rest of today's show, please go to all the links below where you can find my guest, everything he's got going on. I know he's very busy. Of course, I'm very busy as well. So please make sure you go to the Tiger Fitness link through the link below. Use code Kyle at checkout to get some supplements, get you all jacked and tan. And of course, Fox and Sons coffee as well. And without further ado, let's get into today's show. And welcoming to the show, Ryan Matta. I figured out today we are now brothers in Hummers. Me only temporarily, but he's a little bit more permanent than me. How you doing, man?
Good, brother. Kyle, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, of course, man. Well, why don't you let the audience know who you are and
And how's
what
the
you do?
Yeah, man. So I'm a documentary filmmaker, investigative journalist. Dedicated about the last 3 years of my life, specifically focusing on child trafficking, government-funded child trafficking. I've been traveling all around the world. 20 in the last 40 weeks, I've been to about 15 to 20, 15 different countries, but about 20 countries in the last 40 weeks. So I've been all over the world, and it's really radicalized me, man. It's given me a complete different perspective on life, and that's one of those trips was down to El Salvador. And after you go to a country like El Salvador, man, I got a lot to say about it, so we can talk about it. I know you had mentioned it. It'll radicalize you. So I'll kind of land it there and then kind of get into this.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely incredible. I've only probably been to, I think, maybe two countries. I think I was in the Bahamas, the Dominican Republic, and obviously the United States is where I've been. I've mostly only traveled along the East Coast. So, one thing that I've noticed, and I'm sure you've noticed if you've traveled around, it's like most major cities, at least here in the United States, are just completely deteriorated. I live near Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh used to be pretty nice. It's still nice compared to most major cities. I've been in New York City, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, but you start going to any of the other like major cities, specifically New York City. I haven't been to California, but I've heard it's way worse out there. It's just homeless people, drug addicts, shit on the street, just absolute chaos. And I think most people, definitely of our persuasion, kind of look at that and think, like, why do we have to live like this? Like, this is no way that people who live in America, really, which is supposed to be the greatest country in the world, we shouldn't have to live like this. So you had mentioned El Salvador, and it seems like we don't have to live like that. But I'm curious of if there's like any other areas that kind of come to mind about like where it seems like it's more prosperous.
No, brother, there is no place like El Salvador on earth. It's the only country in the world where the government wakes up. The only country that I've ever been to, anyways. Actually, Dubai is kind of similar,
Sure.
but nothing like El Salvador. El Salvador is the only country in the world where you'll find a government that wakes up every day and tries to make life better for their citizens. Like that is their sole mission every single day. Like imagine how much better your life would be if our government, like let's even take USAID and that scandal for example. And I'll be out of the sun here in a minute for you.
Yeah, you're good.
Um, so let's take USAID. Imagine if USAID was used to make the life better of our citizens instead of going to these countries and
Right.
overthrowing governments and installing dictators and making the world this evil, corrupt place. literally our government built ISIS. Our government helped fund Israel, who built Hamas, right? Like every terrorist organization pretty much throughout the world has been built or funded by or in some way associated with our government. I mean, look, Fast and the Furious being a prime example, Obama dropping bombs on children. I mean, now Trump's blowing up people on these boat vessels that, that they didn't go to court. They didn't have a court date. They weren't found guilty of any crime. We're literally blowing up people on boats. So just imagine if all of that energy was used to make our life better, and that is literally El Salvador. And when you live in a country, because I'm building a home there, I'm doing real estate development down there now,
Nice.
and you wake up every day and your life gets better. Your life is literally getting better because you know that your government is working with you to help you make your life better. Everything from the local laws to the regulations to eradicating corruption. And I can kind of get into exactly how Bukele did that. But man, if anybody in your audience is only going to leave here and watch this or watch a little bit or take one thing from this, I beg you guys, it's pretty much from anywhere in the United States. It's a $300 plane ticket, $350 plane ticket if you book it out in advance. You can stay in literally like a crappy hostel in El Salvador. That's $17 for 3 days. I met a girl that was staying in one. She's like, it's by no means like the Taj Mahal or even anything of the sort. But if you really wanted to rough it and go on a cheap vacation, you could go to El Salvador, probably on a 5-day vacation for under $700, all round trip, everything. You'd have to rough it a little bit, but for like $1,500, you could live like pretty much like a king for a week down there.
Holy crap. So I don't know if you know Pete Quinones. He's kind of a right-wing podcaster, good friend of mine. And he took a trip to El Salvador. And I remember him kind of saying, like, yeah, you're going to see some police, like militarized police on some corners and stuff like that. And he said it's a little bit different. But he's like, it's not like being in a major city here in the West or, in the United States, where you see drug addicts and gangs and just unbridled chaos all the time. Like, it's actually orderly and it's not perfect, but it's like you said, it seems like they're actually trying to restore some sort of order and make it somewhere that people would want to live.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that a little bit. So literally 3 years ago, El Salvador was the deadliest country in the world. Like, not the second, not the third. It was literally the most deadly country in the world. It was more dangerous than Detroit. It was more dangerous than every single major city in America. And within 3 years, Bukele turns it to one of the safest countries in Latin America. Just this last week, they are now going on day 1011 with 0 homicides, brother. That has never been done in all of world history. There has never been a single country that has ever gone 1,000 days without a single homicide. When I tell you it's the safest country in the world, bro, I drove to the deadliest part of El Salvador, which was Soyaponga. 4 years ago, this was the deadliest part of El Salvador, deadliest city in El Salvador, which would make it the deadliest city in the world. And I left my car unlocked purposely. This is how confident I was. I've been there about 9 times now. I said I'm building down there. I'm so confident that I wasn't going to get robbed. I left my $2,000 MacBook Pro in the trunk of my car. I left my car unlocked. I specifically left $150 in my center console. And I didn't mean to, but I left my mics that are about $250 sitting on the front seat in the open. And I left my car unlocked. I went and walked around town. I went and got a haircut. I walked about a mile away, picked up a Little Caesars pizza. And then I'm out vlogging with a $2,000 iPhone out in arm's length. I can't go to any major city in America and have my cell phone out at arm's length. I have a cage that locks my cell phone in. It's like a metal cage. And I have 2 steel handles on it. And then I have a waist strap that connects to my waist. So if somebody tries to run by and snatch it, good luck. You got to get out of both my hands, and then it's going to grab and hook onto my waist. And it's going to give me that second to grab you and get my phone back. I can't do that anywhere. And that is El Salvador. Then I went out at night at 11 or at midnight in an area I've never been to, where homes literally at one point it was so dangerous that every home has a driveway that has a big metal gate, and the gates are about 8 feet high. On top of the gate, they have 2-foot row of razor wire. Some of the houses literally have, on top of a 12-foot wall, have 4 feet of electrical wire on top of their house, because that's how dangerous it was. I'm talking about a 3rd-story window that's like this big. I don't even know if you could fit a body through the window, and they have bars on it because that's how dangerous it was there 3 years ago. So how did Bukele turn that from the deadliest country in the world? Well, he was the mayor of some smaller town in El Salvador. Then he started to run for the presidency. He won the presidency, But the problem was that the United States government, using USAID and all these corrupt NGOs over the last 60 years, drove El Salvador into 2 civil wars. El Salvador was never dumping their prisons into America. America, in the 1980s, after their first civil war, went all across the country of America, all across Mexico, and we rounded up every MS-13 gang member we could find. We didn't deliver them back to an El Salvadorian prison. We put them on buses and we put them on planes, and we literally drove them into downtown El Salvador and dropped them off, let them go completely scot-free. So it was America who was literally dumping their prisons into El Salvador. So Bukele wins office. It takes.
Nope. He should be back any second. Truth be told, he had help from some billionaires, Thiel and friends, I believe. I'll be sure to ask him about that whenever Ryan gets back. Give him a second. Phone snatching. Is that true? I honestly haven't heard any stories about phone snatching. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'm back. Okay, I'm back. There you go. Now you can hear me, right?
Yeah. All right.
Sorry, I got to the call.
Yeah, that's okay.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh, yeah, that's all right. You're just getting set back up here.
That's better.
Yeah, so I believe you were at you were talking about how yeah. So basically, yeah, you left off at how the US.
Okay, well, I can't hear him, so I don't know if he said yes, but you nodded your head, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to hear you back.
I don't know if
man, this sucks.
Yeah, that's right.
Let me disconnect my Bluetooth and just come in regular.
All right. We'll give him a second to do that.
Okay, now you should be able to hear me. I should be able to hear you well.
Yeah, can you hear me?
There we go. I don't know if I can, but I'll keep talking. So
yeah,
if you can't hear me after I finish this, I'll reset and I'll come back in. I'm almost to my house here. I'll be at my house in 2 seconds. So what Bukele did was he had issues getting control of his government because he had the corrupt politicians that were constantly fighting against him. So he went and he started building the mega prisons. He says, we're going to arrest these cartel members and we're going to start putting them in prisons. But the cartel members controlled the courts. So this is the first time in decades that the cartel members were actually being held accountable for the crimes that they committed. So what the cartels did is they wanted to send a message to Bukele. He said, you don't run this country, we run this country. And they went out and they saw 63 one day. I think it was 127 in one weekend. What that did was they ended up killing one of the members of the government's child. So it was a huge PR nightmare for the cartels, and it was a huge PR nightmare for the people on the, basically the Democrats. So there was so much outrage that it forced the Democrats to vote with Bukele, and they basically allowed Bukele to suspend the Constitution. And then Bukele writes in a new law that states that if you have any gang tattoos on your face and you're covered from head to toe in gang tattoos, we know who you are. We know that you're obviously declaring how many people you've murdered on your face. You're a menace to society, and you're going to prison for life, and you're never going to see the light of day. You don't get a court appointment. You don't get to call an attorney. You don't get any rights. We know what you did. We knew who you are, and you're going to prison. And he went around his country, and he rounded up 83,000 gang members, and pretty much overnight started to reduce crime. But he had to go city by city. So it was one day after one day after one day, or one day at a time, one day at a time, one day at a time. He literally went from town to town to town. He would find the cartel's headquarters. He would take it over with the military and the police. He would find the good citizens of that town. He would deputize them, make them police officers. He would give them their own headquarters. He would make the cartel's house or the cartel's hideout or headquarters, and he would to that town. And you went from a country where every citizen was afraid to rat, because if you ratted on the cartels were going to come kill you and your children. The cartels were ruthless. They were just like what that did in 3 years, Salvador into the safest country. PR is attacked by the media. The media started to call him a dictator. Mm-hmm. I need to see.
Yeah, your connection's breaking up a little bit. Give him a minute. Make me a deputy. Yeah. When he built the mega jail, why didn't the gangs go crazy? Or maybe they did. Fascinating story. Yeah. Hey, good to see you screwed up, Nebsky. Ryan should be back any second. I know he said he's pretty close to his house. So, um, yeah, I absolutely love the Bukele story. Um, so, yeah, what's up? It's, I'm skeptical of how Trump is doing things now because it just seems like he's so old and tired and doesn't really have the full kind of sack to do what needs to be done. But I don't know, maybe this whole Charlie Kirk situation will change his mind. I'm gonna take Ryan off just for a minute. 5 minutes. Okay, yeah. Ryan will be back in 5 minutes. Anyways, chat, how's everybody doing? Hopefully everybody's doing well. Let me message him back. What's your shirt? Okay, so I actually got this from a Chinese website, funny enough. And I got a Pantera battle jacket. I'm looking at my phone to text him back. And I spent a shitload of money. It wasn't a shitload of money. I got like a collared Jaws shirt and sorry. Take your time. I got a collared Jaws shirt, and I think I got this bracelet and this ring from there. I also got like a Pantera, or I'm sorry, Sepultura cutoff and a Alien cutoff as well. And I saw this shirt on there because it's like the Metallica design. So I got one off Amazon, right? And I don't know, Kyle, I don't know if you've seen any like the pictures of Zach Wild when he's touring with Pantera right now, but he has a vest and it says St. Diamond, St. Vinny, 333 Cowboys from Hell real big on the back. And I almost bought one off a website. It was called like marveljacket.com. I was kind of skeptical about it. I didn't go for it. I ended up just buying the patches because I found them on Etsy and they were like 60, 70 bucks. Yeah, yeah. Oh, dude, it's so sick. And I'm really not much of one for like vests, but I kept seeing that. I'm like, all right, dude, that's fucking cool. So the patches on Etsy were like 70 bucks. I was like, all right, maybe eventually, or I could just buy that vest for 128. And then they were like 15% off. So then it was like 60 bucks or something like that. I'm like, well, that's a little pricey. Maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. And then if I like Etsy threw me like a $20 off code, and I think it took it all the way down like 48 bucks or something like that. I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'm buying it. So I wanted to wear it for this weekend. So if anybody's near my area here in the southwestern Pennsylvania area, please, please, please come see us. We're playing with Hinder this weekend. It's gonna be a fucking awesome show. It's gonna be packed. It was a blast last year. It's gonna be an absolute blast this year as well. I was hoping that I was gonna wear that Pantera vest and I was gonna sew on a Pantera patch on the front, but unfortunately, I just wasn't that the jacket was like 2 sizes too small. So I'm going to give it to my brother's girlfriend, which isn't a big deal. But I ordered one off Amazon. It's not going to be, or I'm sorry, no. I ordered the patches and I'm going to get a vest off Amazon and sew everything on. So I got to find if anybody knows like a good upholster near me or somebody that will do sewing, seamstress, I think the word is, then I'll probably go do that. Yeah, he should be back on any minute. Yeah, I'm so stoked for this weekend. It's gonna be awesome. I'm really digging the way Ron's kind of very, very knowledgeable on the stuff that Bukele is doing because I asked somebody about it might have been even like a year ago or so, and I really wanted to get somebody on who knew stuff about El Salvador. And I forget how I heard about Ryan originally, but he came across my feed. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And then his pinned tweet, if you go to his Twitter now, I might have him tagged if you're watching on Twitter, Ryan Matta Media on Twitter. And his first thing's a whole documentary, or at least like a thing that he did on Bukele. Dude, please do. We're going to try to make it out to Ohio next year. We played at the West Side Bowl in Youngstown. Uh, when was that? That might have even been last year. It might have been, I can't remember when exactly it was. It was, yeah, it was fucking cold. Yeah, it was cold. But yeah, we're gonna hopefully be playing out in Ohio again next year. I'd like to get to some places in like Columbus, Cleveland, and travel around next year. My wife and I have a vacation scheduled in North Carolina, or at least we're planning one for North Carolina next year. We have a cruise in December, so we'll be down in Florida and North Carolina next year. Um, Other places, I would love to make it out to like Michigan to play a show up there because we have some friends up there. I think our friends in Moon Fever are originally from Michigan, so I'd love to play a show up there. Um, We have tons of friends out in Ohio, venues that we played out in Ohio. Oh, here we go. All right, man. Give me a wave whenever you're good. Man, that's okay, cool. All right, your setup looks awesome, man.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. Crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love it. I was watching your stream the other day, and it's like, man, this dude's he's got it going on.
Thank you, brother. Sorry, is it better now?
It sounds like you might be coming through the wrong mic. It sounds like you're a little bit
Yeah,
distant.
okay, got this set up here.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, dude, I hope to make it out to Cleveland next year. There's good food out there with the EV Hummer that we're driving.
There we go. Now that should be good.
Okay, cool. All right, so
no, dude, no, very sorry about that.
Okay, there we go. Beautiful. Yeah, you sound great. So basically, before we kind of got a little broken up there, you had mentioned in the 80s, between the civil wars and the U.S. dumping all these prisoners there, that really destabilized El Salvador. Bukele basically went day by day, city by city, and threw into prison. I think you said like 83,000 gang members, everybody who was tattooed head to toe. They had to go to jail. We don't care. No, no trial, no nothing. You go to prison. So wherever you want to take it from there, floor's all yours, man.
Yeah, brother. So it was really crazy because so he started by arresting the gang members. And then as he was arresting the gang members, the cartels they went on this murder spree. So I said that already, right? You guys heard that part?
Yeah.
Let me say it again.
I think you might have cut out, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so Bukele finally got a little bit of control over his government. He started building these mega prisons. And he started to go out and arrest the cartel members, but he didn't have control of the courts. So he still had the corrupt judges, just like we do here in America, just like the young lady who was who was killed in the neck, stabbed in the neck by the man who was released 14 times, right? That man should have been in prison a long time ago. He should have never been released back on the streets.
Absolutely.
But come to find out that the judge has some halfway house rehabilitation program, and she's literally profiting because she's letting these people off, but she's forcing them to go to this rehabilitation program. So that's how the corruption, kind of systems throughout our society. And then that would also most likely be a for-profit organization, but those organizations are also applying for government grants. So they're getting our tax dollars to be funded. Then they're also corrupting the court system by releasing these animals, and then also forcing those animals to pay to go to these rehabilitation places, if you will. And then they're just literally released right back onto the streets with us. Yeah. So in El Salvador, it was similar. The judges were on the payroll of the cartel. So when they would get caught or they would get in trouble, they would just pay off the judges. The judges would release them. They'd be back on the streets. So that was part of the problem. So as Bukele starts to round these guys up, they know that they still have control of the judges. So they go, we're going to send a message to Bukele. We're going to go out and we're going to slaughter 63 innocent civilians. They just went out, didn't really matter who you were, went through a town and just started mowing down people just to send a message to say, hey, you're not in control of this state or this country. We are. We don't work for you. You work for us. And Bukele said, okay, that's it. It was such a PR nightmare for the cartels that Bukele was able to force the radical Democrats in his administration, who were controlled by the United States government, because literally the people wanted heads on spikes. So if they were going to vote against Bukele on this one, and Bukele saying, hey, I can fix this. We got the places, we can hold them. It's these judges that are letting them out. It's these politicians that are passing the laws that are causing this to happen. We can fix this, and I can fix it. Give me the chance. So it forced those politicians to vote with Bukele. That vote was to suspend the Constitution. And give me 1 second. Let me just turn on my fan.
Yeah, man, you're good. Trump's been taking notes. We'll see if he is.
There we go. Sorry, it's so hot in here. I just got into town. I haven't had a ton of time to use AC on. But so he suspends the Constitution, and he now writes in a law that says anybody that's tattooed from head to toe, we have the authority to put you into prison. You don't get to go to an attorney. You don't even get to call anybody, because we don't want any issues with you giving intel to the people on the outside, saying what prison you're in, how we run the prisons, because the cartels were really organized and really powerful at that time. So it was really important that didn't happen. And he went town by town. So as he was going through the towns, he was going one town at a time. And as they would take over a town, the cartels would have a headquarters there. So when the military came in, took it over, arrested all the cartel members, the citizens that had the bravery to stand up and call in and make those reports and say, hey, we got cartel activity. It's in this town. Come clean up this town. It was the men in that town that were made into police officers. Okay. He deputized the citizens of those towns to basically become police officers, and he built a police force. And then now they have an earnable, livable wage, right? And what the big picture here is, what Bukele is doing is he's disincentivizing criminal activity. The punishment is so harsh that you're now more incentivized to go and earn an honest living. Prior to this, the men who earned an honest living, the cartels would show up at your door and say, hey, we want our cut. Oh, you want to put a business in here? That's fine. Your business can do good. You can make an honest living, but you're going to give us 10%. And then if your business started to crush it and started to do really well, then the cartels wanted more. You understand? So the citizens at that point were kind of 50-50. They just had to deal with life. Life was that way. And instead of basically paying these crazy taxes like we do here in America, 53% to a government that's literally trying to kill us, right? They're trying to poison us with these vaccines. Our skies are getting poisoned. Our food's getting poisoned. And they're still taking 50% of our money. Our government is literally still the cartel, right? They're just much more powerful, much more sophisticated, and they come after us in different ways. Mm-hmm. But what Bukele did was he started to clean up this country. And all of a sudden, this town started getting safer. And then he started to get a much more momentum. I forget what he got elected with, maybe a 60 or 70% originally. And now he has like a 90, I just read an article last week, it was like a 97 approval rating on the way that he's cleaned up crime. Now, not everybody agrees with what he's doing because there is a little bit of a wealth gap starting to happen where it's becoming so popular and there's so many people from all around the world and the population is only 6 million there. So it's not a big country that the cost of real estate is going up so fast that it's pricing a lot of the citizens, even the citizens that are willing to go work like a really good job. They're pretty much priced out of owning real estate forever. If they don't already own land, if land didn't get passed down to them, which I think Bukele's going to do something with all this Bitcoin. I do think he's going to give them a bunch of money for free, but we'll go into that here in a little bit. But so he goes town to town and he arrests all the cartel members, cleans up the city. Now he starts to go in, and after he built the mega prisons, he arrested 88,000 cartel members, gangbangers from all across the country, and put them all in prison. Then he started to get more power. So then, this is now 3 years in, 4 years in, more elections start taking place. And Bukele's party is literally the New Ideas Party, Nuevi Ideas. And they start to get more power in the government. So then with that power, they start to go after the corrupt judges and they start impeaching the judges. And then he has the State of the Union address, which kind of like Trump in the State of the Union, where every single member of the government's in this one chamber. In El Salvador, much smaller country, much smaller government. Last person to walk in the door is a sergeant at arms. Sergeant of arms locks the door. Bukele goes, here's what I want you to do. I want you to investigate every single member of our government that is in this room, including my party and including myself. If you find any crimes, and including on me, I want them arrested immediately. And what that did is it took out 2 more people from his own party. So this we can't go after Republicans because they're on our side. No, you're corrupt. You're getting arrested, period. And he went after them for basically taking a few kickbacks, skimming a little bit off the top. Like they weren't like the last 4 or 5 to go. A couple of them were judges that were pretty corrupt, but the other 3 politicians were just kind of like skimming a little off the top. And Bukele found out about it and they gone, went right to prison. So what that did is all of a sudden now he has this country, and all of a sudden the government stops stealing from the people and starts to work for the citizens. Now, what's really cool about this is Bukele is getting very wealthy as he's president, but he's going out and doing speaking engagements at $1 million a pop, right? Mm-hmm. The government also has federalized specific things. Like all along the interstate, there's all these billboards. Well, the government owns all those billboards. So the government is getting money then without taxing the citizens by allowing the corporations to advertise on real estate that they own. Versus here in America, where along all of our federal highways, the billboards are all owned by private equity, private industry. So instead of our government going, yeah, why would we let somebody else sell this billboard space when it technically it could have been our real estate and we could have been making money, and then with the money we're making, we don't have to tax our citizens so much. You see, our government is kind of giving away their ability to make money, which is what we kind of do all around the world. So why do we have a problem with Iran and Russia so much is because they won't privatize their oil. Well, when the government is extracting the oil and they can sell the oil, they don't have to tax you to death. Look at Saudi Arabia, look at look at Dubai, look at the Middle East. All of these countries that are getting extracting their own oil, and they're not using BP or Chevron or Marathon to do it, they're making money hand over fist. So then with all of that money, the government can do it. You want to steal a little bit, but you're making my life better. My taxes are 10%, or I don't have to pay taxes at all. And you can take all the gas money you want, by all means. Would you rather have BP, Mobil, and Chevron here in America making all the money off all the gas that they sell and charging us $3 a gallon? Or would you rather our government charges $3 a gallon and we don't have to pay sales tax? I'm all about federalizing. And that's what kind of I become kind of this nationalist in a way, where you start to realize that's how we carry out these regime changes. That's why we go into these countries. We go into these countries and we say, hey, nope, you're not, it's not a democracy if you guys federalize the oil production. Because same thing with Venezuela. Venezuela in 2001 had the highest standard of living in the world. Think about, let that sink in. The highest standard of living in the world in 2001. They have more oil beneath their feet. I forget who was in charge at one time, and then obviously we came in with our NGOs and we did a little regime change. And we claimed that this dictator took power. We installed that dictator, right? And then that dictator did the bidding of us, which is exactly what we said to do, right? So, but back to Bukele. Bukele's created a country now where every day that you wake up, your life gets better because there's no criminals, there's no corrupt politicians. The government is no longer incentivized to steal from the citizens. They're no longer incentivized to take kickbacks off the top. And Bukele put out a post just this week, and he said, if you haven't noticed the rate of acceleration, or you thought the rate of acceleration was impressive, just wait. It's about to get a whole lot crazier, right? Meaning we're about to accelerate. If you think the growth of El Salvador was impressive, if you think the transformation was impressive, if you think the freedom that we allow our citizens to have down here is impressive, just wait. And what he means by that is he didn't just stop at the government. He didn't just stop at Congress. He didn't just stop with the judges. He went all the way down to the local level, to the cities. So at every city, if you bought property, let's say you bought 10 acres and you wanted to chop it up into half-acre plots, in order to do that, you'd have to get it approved from the city. So when I first bought my property, the old style of government was kind of still in there. Bukele was eradicating the good people, but they didn't really have this new system built on how you can approve things and how the government would agree that this is okay and what was right and what was wrong. But his party is so small now. He's drilled his government down to such a small amount of people, and all of those people are trying to make the government better and life better for the citizens. When they have a new idea, let's just say that at the city level, in order for me to take that property and get it chopped up, I would have had to have spent like 5 to 10 grand. It would have probably taken me 2 years, 3 years if I didn't grease the wheel. If I did grease the wheel, I might be able to get it done in about 2, but that would require me paying an extra 5 to 10 grand to some corrupt, city council official that approved the deeds and permits. And if I didn't pay them off, I'd probably be waiting for 3 years with no guarantee that it was ever going to get done. So Bukele implements this new system, arrest the crooked people at that level as well that are skimming off the top, and he implements this new system, which almost makes it impossible for the city officials to take bribes and kickbacks and skim money off the top. You apply online, that is overseen by higher level people below the city officials. So if these city officials are, if you basically have phases, phase 1, 2, 3. If you submit phase 1 and phase 1 is taking like 3 months, it's going to send a red flag up the top. And now you have somebody over the top that's kind of going to be watching digitally. You don't even know what they're looking at, but they're looking at this going, wait, why is this guy's permit not approved? He's checked all the boxes. I would have approved this. And you start to get a spotlight on you. So he's kind of disincentivized that. I submitted phase 1, and they're like, even with this new system, we're expecting it to take, anywhere between 1 to 3 months, 3 months, worst case, 1 month, best case. I applied on a Monday. I submitted all my paperwork for phase 1 on a Monday. On Wednesday, I got it approved. 2 days later. So the rate of growth is what is happening is you're allowing investors to come into your government, and you're removing all the regulations. Like here in America, if I brought property, and I know my buddy Mark owns real estate in Boise, Idaho, and he was doing this in Boise, Idaho. And because he owns a restaurant, he was really big at putting together these anti-gay events. Like basically they had gay month, anal sex month, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then he went and had like straight white male month, right? And it was just or straight male month, which celebrated, being a heterosexual. The more kids you have, the more bigger of a discount you get at his restaurants and stuff. So the city is filled with all these woke activists, of course, and it's taken him 3 years. Well, when you're borrowing capital to go and do investments and you're paying 10% interest, and a lot of times with short-term real estate developments, you'll borrow capital at a higher interest rate because the reward is such a high payoff once you get everything approved and you start selling those lots individually. Well, if you can't get the approval from the city, you're sitting on there and you're just burning through money. So it's completely screwed him over. 3 years he's been waiting. He still hasn't got permits approved. And I'll have my property from the day that I decided to go and develop it. Within 4 to 6 months, I'll already have the permits. Everything will be broken up and I'll be selling land.
Holy crap. So I live in Pennsylvania, which is a blue state. And it's kind of funny because my mom and stepdad just finished building a house probably about 2 years ago. And they're still dealing with paperwork and getting everything finalized to get all like, oh, well, the state finally recognizes your plumbing is safe and, all your property taxes are in. So like, I know multiple people now personally that never in Minecraft for, the overlords listening, that never finished finalizing all their paperwork because it's like, oh, I'm going to have to pay all these property taxes now. But right now I don't have to worry about it because our stuff's not finalized. But once again, that's kind of like sitting on a powder keg because all it takes is somebody to go through and say, oh yeah, they're not paying their property taxes. The next thing you know, you lose your house, or you get audited, and then the IRS fucks you, stuff like that, where it sounds like what's going on in El Salvador, at least the way you're explaining it, is like they're kind of streamlining this process. Like, hey, if you want to build property down here, you invest, and we're gonna basically do a character check. We're gonna make sure everything's good on our end and on your end, and if everything's a green light, then you're good to rock and roll.
Oh, absolutely, man. And there's no property taxes in El Salvador. There's a sales tax, 10%. So once you buy your
Wow.
property, you're scot-free. And the next big tax down there is their import tax. So El Salvador is awesome. They're highly incentivizing people to build and manufacture in El Salvador. But if you want to import something, great, pay a tax on it. No problem. That's great for us. And that's how the government, like when you travel to El Salvador and you go and you get off the plane, you pay like a $12 tourist fee to stay there and get your passport stamped. The government has all these ways to make money, and it doesn't involve taxing the citizens. So you got like no property tax, no capital gains tax, no tax on digital assets, no this tax, no that tax. It's basically like insane down there. And that's what allows everything to be so cheap, is you're paying the import tax. And then I don't think you're not paying a sales tax on it, if I'm not mistaken, when you sell it. Like I've looked at quite a few bills. The only tax you're paying is your tip to the waitress. It's automatic 10% gratuity on your food. That's it. Which is great for them. It's good for the citizens there, right? Like I want to pay that type of tax. And then I pay on my electricity bill, I pay a $3 a month fee. And that fee goes to the city, which would be technically considered a tax. They don't call it a tax, but it's a $3 fee that you pay. And that's because Bukele went and put new roads across the entire country. And they're all lit up by these really cool, like ginormous neon orange and blue and yellow pillars. They're all like their flag colors all up and down these interstates. It looks really freaking cool at night. So that's what you pay. You donate $3 a month, kind of just chip in to give, make the country look better. And then here's the craziest part, right? So those criminals that he rounded up, right? They ravaged and destroyed the country of El Salvador for 60 years. They ruled with an iron fist, and they ruled with a brutal force. They destroyed that country. So what Bukele says is, now if you want to see the light of day, you can sit nut to butt in a cell where lights are on, and we take away your mattresses for basically, they only get to lay down, I think, for 6 hours a day, or maybe 8 hours a day. They have a cot, or they have like a foam mattress to lay on. After that, it's a cement slab. So you can sit in that all day long, or you can go to work in one of our factories. And what are those factories doing? Well, those factories are building school supplies for all the children, all of the pencils, all of the books, all of the desks, all of the uniforms that the children wear. Every single day, these factories run 24/7, and all the kids have brand new uniforms. The kids in all the schools over there, he's rebuilding. I think it's like 2,500 schools across the entire country, all completely rebuilt and repaid for. Everything inside those schools is all bought and paid for by the government. All of the roads and infrastructure, he's building interstates across the entire country. They just put in a new international airport over on the east side of the state, because the east side of the state they were complaining that we were forgotten. Bukele was focusing so much on the capital and the international airport on that side. So he said, you guys are right. The biggest problem in El Salvador right now in the capital is the traffic, because the roads were designed when they probably had a population of 3 million. And now everybody's coming to El Salvador. And I think it's so bad to the point where like he's most likely going to have to work with Elon Musk and Boring, and they're literally going to have to put some type of tunnel system in underground, because it is so bad that when they have events like adopting Bitcoin in November, which is the biggest event, if any of your audience wants to travel anywhere and take a vacation at any time in the world, this is the best week of the year. If there was only one place I would go once a year, it would be El Salvador from November 10th to November 18th. And that's going to be the adopting Bitcoin week. And everybody who's anybody there that's a freedom-loving, bastard like us, they travel from all over the world, and they go and they transcend in El Salvador because they're hearing this. So what you're doing is you're not only attracting tourists, but you're also attracting investors that are the brightest, the most successful, they're the most awake. Looking at America right now, you can't tell me in any major city that you're like, yes, you know what I want to do? We're all doing podcasts from home, because we're like, well, what business am I going to go start? I can sit here in my house and I can generate a living within a year of starting a podcast. I can turn it into a profitable business with a few sponsors, and at least I can keep my head above water. I can stay home with my family all day. I don't have to go slave at a 9-to-5 job. I can always be there for my wife. I can always be there for my kids. But I don't like thinking of starting a business. What business do you want to start? And honestly, when you think about it, like we all want to have so many more kids, but do we really, can you even afford to have them in America? Right. I mean, just in child support, if you got separated or divorced, you're paying probably $600 to $800 a month if you make minimum wage in child support, right? Like that's insane. Like how do you pay $2,400 a month in rent, and then pay another $600 or $800 in child support, and then pay another $1,000 a month in bills? You're looking at like $4,000 a month just to, I mean, you're looking at over $4,800. You'd have to make $48,000 a year, kind of just to keep your head above water and have like any standard of living in America. For literally the gentleman who was teaching me my Spanish lessons, he makes $375 a month. So let me just do the simple math on this is the minimum wage in El Salvador. It's $375 a month times 12 is $4,500 a year. And he lives he gets by at that, right? Now, if you're not paying your employees, like he also makes tips and stuff like that, so he does make more than that. That's why they can pay him. But almost every business that you find down there, if you're not paying your employees at least 30 to 40% above minimum wage right now, you can't find an employee.
Wow.
You just can't find one because there's so many jobs starting in El Salvador. There's so much opportunity down there that if you're not willing to pay your employees a little bit extra and give them a little bit higher of a standard of living, well, then you're not going to have an employee. And then he also passed a law that in December, you have to give your employees double the wage. So if you're getting by, no matter what, when Christmas time comes, every family in El Salvador has the opportunity to give their children a great Christmas and give their family a good Christmas because they're literally getting double the paycheck that month.
Wow.
Like I said, every day you wake up there, your life gets better. I was walking through Walmart the other day in El Salvador. I just got back yesterday. I was walking through Walmart and some gay Miley Cyrus or Madonna or like Katy Perry song came on and it's Latin America country, right? So they bump their music in Walmart. They'll have giant speakers. It's like an after party, you know, they're weird about the music down there. So it was like loud. And I'm like, next thing I know, I'm just like bouncing around in Walmart. I was like laughing. I look at myself. I'm like, bro, you fucking dancing to some Katy Perry ass music. I was in such a good mood, dude. I was just like bouncing around, not a worry in the world, not worrying about my corrupt politics, not worrying about my government stealing from me, nothing. And I took a step back and I go, dude, I cannot tell you the last time I was in that good of a mood in America that I was literally like bobbing and weaving to some Miley Cyrus while I was shopping at Walmart. Like when has anybody in your audience that's watching this been that excited that they were in that good of a mood that they were literally dancing and bopping and weaving out of nowhere at Walmart? Like that's what El Salvador is, man. And the deals right now, like oceanfront real estate in the best part of the country, right? There's 1,300 miles of oceanfront real estate in El Salvador. Now, Bitcoin Beach was the first part of El Salvador that really backed Bukele. You know, Bukele made Bitcoin legal tender. Every business in this part of this state except Bitcoin. So that part of that state has done really well. They've done really, really successful. But if you're willing to go maybe like 25 minutes away from the beach and you're willing to go up into the mountains, you can still get real estate probably for $15,000 an acre, maybe even $10,000 an acre. And you could build. Now, to get to that property, you probably need a 4x4 car, right? Is there electricity up there? Maybe you need solar. Is there access to water? Maybe you have to put in a well, or what most people do is they put in a water tank and they'll put in like a 15,000 gallon water tank, and then a truck will come up once a month and fill up your water tank for you. There's a lot of options to do it cheaper, but you could probably build a 2 or 3 bedroom house down there for 50,000 easily.
Holy crap.
You get property for 10 or 15,000 and you put a house on it for 50,000, and you now have your dream house in a country that you don't have to pay taxes on. At the very least, I just tell everybody, like, at the rate that this country is changing, it doesn't matter where you buy real estate in 10 years, it'll be worth probably $500,000 to $1 million.
Holy shit.
Because it's going to be literally to buy and like as wealthy. China is putting a port the size of Singapore. They just put their second international airport, and Honduras doesn't have one. So they're literally going to be the hub of Latin America for international travel. So like we fly into, whenever you're going over to the Middle East or anywhere over in Africa, you basically fly into, what country is that called?
Not Somalia.
No, not Somalia. You fly into, it starts with a U.
Uganda?
Nope, it's in Ethiopia, and it's called freaking
Uruguay?
Nope. Gosh, it's Istanbul. Istanbul starts with an I. Istanbul.
You said you.
Yeah, I'm retarded. So it's
Okay.
Istanbul. And then in Ethiopia, China just put the largest airport in Africa, and it employs 25,000 people. So the United States government has been funneling money into all of the poorest countries for the last basically like 50 years, like billions of our tax dollars to do things like this. And all that money just goes into a corrupt politician's pocket, which is great because we have their UN vote. And that's what USAID has really done all around the world, is they've taken over these governments and they've acquired the UN vote so that they can support who's, so that Israel can bomb, blow up, and do whatever they want and get away with murder. And the United States is going to back them with our military and our weapons, and then
restrict our speech here.
And restrict our speech here. Exactly. So what Bukele's done now, and with this, is he's turning it into the Singapore of the West. This country is going to be the bastion, this freedom capital of the world. But it wasn't. What really was the craziest part was what he was up against, and that's what my documentary, The Great El Salvadorian Comeback, it's actually pinned to the top of my Twitter profile right now at Ryan Matta Media. If you want to see what our government did to El Salvador, and then what Bukele was up against. He was up against the CIA. He was up against Mossad. They controlled every single media outlet in El Salvador. You had every single media outlet across the world, from the BBC to Fox News to everybody calling Bukele this dictator. And he was doing all these things. He was taking the rights away from the criminals. You mean the criminals that are out here putting bullets in the back of children's heads? You mean the thugs that are out here literally stabbing women in the neck on a train? You mean the dirtbags that are literally assassinating Charlie Kirk in his neck during a speech live on TV? Like, these things don't happen by accident, right? Your government, the United States government, also was running the world's largest child trafficking network that we've ever seen. HHS had trafficked in over 452,121 migrant children ages 0 to 17, arrived at our border. During the Trump administration, it was like 3,000 to 4,000. During the Trump administration, it was maybe like 10 or 20,000 a year at best. And those numbers were drastically going down by 2020. The next year, I bet it would have been probably like 2,000 or 3,000. So Biden comes in, destroys in day one, signs 93 executive orders, and obliterates every immigration policy that Trump had put into place, because our government is so incompetent that we gave Trump the executive branch, we gave him Congress in 2016, and we gave him the Senate. And his entire administration worked against him to undermine every policy he did. He couldn't pass any laws. So when the Biden administration came in, it was just executive order. Everything Trump did was gone. He literally opened the floodgates, and he went and changed laws like DACA, which basically said, like, hey, we're not going to take any asylum claims from children that are coming from like 10 countries over. If you're in El Salvador, you can apply in Mexico. If you're in Guatemala, you can apply in Mexico. If you're in all these other countries, and it prevented the children from just arriving at our border, because if your kid was 16 or 17 and the parents were poor and couldn't afford to feed you, they would say, hey, take this opportunity, go to America. The government's going to give you some assistance. They're going to help you. They're going to give you housing. And what that did is we turned this into a trafficking network. So the cartels realized it, and they realized that they don't have to traffic the child across the border anymore. All they would have to do is just write on his arm in permanent marker or safety pin a little photo to his shirt and write a name, an address, and a phone number on that shirt. And then when Border Patrol received that kid, they could take a child. If your audience just searches children getting dropped over border wall on YouTube and they search it, they'll see CCTV. It'll bring up a whole list of CCTV where cartel members are literally bringing their merchandise to the border and dropping it over an 18-foot border wall. Like, they would lean over a border wall with a 5-year-old girl, hold her by the arms, get about 5 feet down, and then just let her fall the other 10 feet. And they were dropping them in areas where Border Patrol had night vision, they had ground sensors, and they had Border Patrol constantly patrolling the area. So the girl was only laying there for a few minutes before Border Patrol picked her up. Border Patrol processes her into the system, records that stuff into her file, then calls HHS and says, hey, we got a kid for pickup. HHS picks up the kid and then opens the kid's file and goes, oh, the kid has a sponsor. We're going to try to reunify that kid with the adult. They call the adult up, say, hey, Kyle, you expecting a kid? You're like, yeah, I am. Oh, what's her name? Julie, and she's 11. What's her birthday? 10/10/21. Oh, congratulations, Kyle. You just won a child. Go fill out this half-ass job application, this FRA application, and we'll be in touch. And they call you back. All right, you passed the background check, which is a half-ass background check done by a company that they'd never heard of and never seen by a case coordinator. And they need to authorize the delivery of that child to you. And after they delivered 350,000 of these children to grown men, we're talking about 6-year-old Asian girls that were going to Black African men from the Congo, obviously no relation, and we were delivering them to them, and we couldn't find 350,000 of them. So our government turned America into the child trafficking capital of the world. And all of this is being done and funded with our tax dollars. And until we wake up and we really go, wait, we're not the good guy. We weren't the good guy in the Iraq war. We weren't the good guy in Afghanistan. There was no weapons of mass destruction. Vietnam was a nightmare. Our foreign policy over the last 50 to 60 years has been atrocious. And it wasn't any better under the Trump administration in 2016.
No.
He called himself the president of peace because the dumb Americans that we weren't paying attention. We didn't know what USAID did. We didn't really understand what regime changes were. We didn't have the Mike Benzes. We didn't have the Tucker Carlsons. We didn't have all these people out here kind of educating us and going, wait, what were they doing with our money? Oh, in Venezuela in 2017, when we were demanding that we wanted Maduro to allow aid trucks in. And what he did, Maduro started to pick up on what we were doing. He's like, he blockaded the bridge. And then once the trucks pulled onto the bridge, he had his military, the guerrillas came out from like the bushes and basically trapped these aid trucks on the bridge. And then they blocked them in. They let the aid workers get out, but they burnt the trucks to the ground. And what was on those trucks? Oh, the entire underbelly was filled with AR-15s, grenade launchers, AK-47s. And we were funneling in a shipment of weapons to fund an opposition to go overthrow and assassinate him.
Yeah, well, then what happened? Yeah, what happened in 2019 under John Bolton and Trump, Operation Gideon, and then what are we doing? You mentioned it a little bit earlier too. We bombed a boat off the coast of Venezuela. We have a giant military basically stationed right off their coast, and we're like offended that they dare fly a plane over our military that's right on their coast. Like, I'm sure Venezuela's a shithole right now, but like we've had brutal sanctions on that country. And the Trump administration, the first time, admitted that, the sanctions that they had on Venezuela were going to cause a migrant crisis, and they let it fly anyways. So when I see people just like justifying the strike, look, if there was legitimate drug trafficking coming from Venezuela, which we know there wasn't, because like the vast majority of drugs do not come from Venezuela, then, then like, okay, all right, I don't agree with killing them, but you could stop them. But they literally just killed these people, and people are celebrating. I'm like, you realize this is just Marco Rubio's his second stab at a regime change. This isn't about drug trafficking, and it never was. This is because they want to topple Venezuela, because Venezuela has a lot of oil, and because they have a government that we don't like.
Trump put out a $50 million bounty on Maduro. The next day, Maduro goes, oh, you want to play those games? I'll give $50 million to anybody who gets any details of the Epstein list, and put a $50 million bounty on the Epstein list. And the next day, we're moving a military off his coast. Make that make sense.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we're supposed to believe we're the good guys.
Yeah,
Jesus.
It's crazy, man. The more you get into it, the more you get into it, the more you realize, like, no, we're not the good guys. We're every single time, America is always the bad guy. We're always the person that's out there sticking our nose into somebody else's business. And this is what I was saying when I was driving in my car. I said, imagine if all of that was used to make our life better. Imagine if our military, and people go, well, they got guards walking on the street. I've been to El Salvador 9 times. I've sped. I've ran red lights. I've, didn't stop at stop signs, not necessarily on purpose, but just either in a hurry or just not paying attention. And military right there, never been pulled over, never been stopped, never been harassed, never even went to a point where I had to stop my car. In Mexico, all throughout the country, you have military checkpoints, and nobody talks about it because we just go, oh, well, that's Mexico. It's dangerous down there. They need to have those. Well, El Salvador was dangerous. Every gas station you walk in has an armed guard with a shotgun slung over his back, and he's just sitting there. And these aren't armed. When I say armed guards, you're thinking like I'm talking like a alpha male in his 20s or 30s that's ready to kick your ass. I'm talking about like your great grandpa who has a cane and can barely walk, and this dude's just sitting there just as like a deterrent, just to say, hey, like we got you're safe here, right? Yeah. I went to the most dangerous area. I went to the most dangerous area. I told you about that. But I also went where I got an Airbnb in San Salvador. Like it was at one point a really bad neighborhood. So they had to have the bulletproof guards where your gates go in. You can tell how bad an area used to be there because they'll have the solid steel gates instead of like having a gate that just blocks off your driveway with like the bars in it, like almost like jail cell bars where like a bullet could go through. But they have the solid steel gates because stray bullets would fly through. So they wanted to make sure that it was safe. And on top of that, they had electrical wire, or they had razor wire on top of the 8 or 12-foot wall, bars on every window. So I'm in one of these areas. You can stay anywhere in there. So as long as you're in San Salvador and you got work, like I had to go to my attorney's office. I just found out where my attorney's office was and literally found an Airbnb that just had a bed and a shower in it, right? I don't need anything else. I'm just there just to, do some stuff for my house. My house isn't built yet. So in this neighborhood, it's a big neighborhood, like any subdivision here with, let's just say 200 houses. So I'm in one part of it. The other part of it I'd never been to. But again, it has the razor wire up top and all this. At one point, it was a bad area. So at midnight, just to make a point, I'm like, I'm going to go walk a mile around at midnight with my phone out vlogging in a cutoff t-shirt. And I'm going to bring over $1,000 cash in my wallet. And I'm not going to take a weapon with me. And I'm just going to go walk around. And just to prove a point that I can go walk safely and I'm not even worried in the least bit. At one point, and I filmed this, I pulled $1,000 cash, all 100 bills out of my wallet. And I'm talking about it. And I'm like, yeah, I got $1,000 cash on me right here. Would anybody in America do this in any major city at midnight that you've never been to? Would you go to a neighborhood that has bars on their window all the way up, like 30 feet high up? The windows are barred up because it's so dangerous at one point. And would you flash $1,000 cash around in your wallet? Most people probably wouldn't do that in a nice, richer night in a white neighborhood, let alone in the hood. So I'm doing this. just to prove a point and say, guys, like everything the media tells you about El Salvador is a lie. And if you have the opportunity to go there, it will truly radicalize you, because every day, like, your life gets better. And the only downfall to that country, the only one, is the traffic in San Salvador. If you don't have to go into the capital, and you're in a part where you're in one of the parts of the city where they're not building and development, because there's construction everywhere. So even if you're not in the capital, sometimes there's traffic because he's literally doing the roads, building new bridges, redoing everything in that country for those citizens. And all that's doing is bringing more tourists who are spending more money, who are, a lot of these tourist towns in El Salvador couldn't survive without the tourist capital. Bukele is getting like the surf competitions moved there. They're one of the best places in the world to surf. There's only been one shark attack in the last 20 or 30 years. So if you want to go get surfing lessons, you want to go do it in California where there was like 4 shark attacks last week, or do you want to go do it in El Salvador where there hasn't been one in 20 years? Common sense will tell you that. Do you want to go to Skid Row? Like, and me and JJ filmed our documentary, What is Treason? #invaded. And we went around America and this was during the peak of the migrant invasion. And we went to Philly. I was sleeping outside with the crackheads on Kensington Avenue. I had this girl shooting up Trank in my car in the zombie apocalypse. I've never seen anything like it, bro. Like, the drugs that were out when we were kids are not the same drugs. This Trank, people think it's fentanyl, bro. No, it ain't fentanyl. It's Trank. It's XYZ xylazine. And it's this chemical drug, which they think it's coming from China. I don't think it is. I think it's getting manufactured in Mexico and by the cartels. And I think those cartels are actually getting it from Israel. The cartel story we broke in Mexico last week, 2 weeks ago, we found out, we went to visit a mass grave, 700 bodies in this mass grave. Come to find out that the butcher, the postolero, they called him, which means like meat. It's like a meat dish where it's like in Mexico, it's like ham, polony, salami, sausage, all in this one big stew. And it's called like the postolero. So this guy got nicknamed the butcher because he was decapitating bodies and dissolving them in sulfuric acid. Not technically sulfuric acid, but it acts like sulfuric acid. It's called lye, and it'll literally dissolve bones. Like, after like an hour of stewing this stir-up in this acid, you need about 100 pounds of lye to dissolve a human body. They had built this custom drainage field that went into a custom septic tank. They had these 55-gallon drums. They were filling up with lion bodies and then mixing them in, cooking them on this burner system. And then when it would drain out, it would drain into like a drainage trap that would catch any remaining bone fragments. And then after that, it would be pumped out into a custom drainage field. Like, this is like advanced stuff that you just don't figure out. Come to find out, they were getting trained by Israel. So Israel was sending members of most likely Mossad or the IDF over to Mexico to train the cartels on how to dissolve bodies in sulfuric acid. Israel was also giving spyware to who? The Mexican government. Who does the Mexican government run by? The cartels. So the cartels were literally using that spyware to go spy on their enemies. The government was using it to spy on journalists. How many journalists? Mexico's the journalist murder capital of the world, because they literally were getting Israeli spyware, and the corrupt politicians were finding out what journalists had what information, and they were going out and assassinating those journalists because they were getting the spyware from Israel.
Right.
Okay?
Well, and who's the president of Mexico right now too?
Yeah, Claudia Sheinbaum. She's in a 95% Christian nation, and you have a Jewish woman who's president. Like, mathematically, the odds of you winning the Powerball for over $1 billion are higher in your favor than that happening in a country like that. Right. And okay, so like this is what we do. This is what our government does. And until we, as the citizens, we don't have a gang problem in America. We don't have an MS-13 problem in America. We don't have a black problem in America. We have a political corruption problem in America. We voted for Bukele 2.0, and we've got Bush Light so far, period. Yes. Like, that's really what we gave Trump the presidency. We gave him all the evidence, all of the ammunition. He was not dead on with USAID, but he needed to please Israel, and he needed to please his masters over in Tel Aviv. And instead of using that power and taking this opportunity to go, oh, wait, who was laundering? How much money did Doge uncover? What government official got arrested for that? One. Did any? Okay, so what do you mean nobody's been arrested? NGOs were allowing children to get raped inside their facility. So after HHS would find the buyer or coordinate the delivery with the sponsor, if it couldn't happen in 14 days, the kid had to go to a long-term care facility. Because of one of the things that Trump did stayed in place somehow, and HHS could only have these kids for 14 days. And I think they left that in place because they wanted the system to burn and turn. They wanted these kids getting, out the system so they could take more. Because every kid that went to an NGO, that NGO was getting $650 a day to $775 per day per child. And that was just to house them. So think of these NGOs like a hotel. The NGO was only charging them the what that they were staying in, let's say Jewish Family Services, for example, or let's say Southwest
Hebrew
Key,
Immigration Aid Society.
yep, bingo. Southwest Key Programs was one of the biggest ones that was actually housing these children.
Mhm.
So after the first round, first contract was a $60 million no bid contract to hold 1,200 male migrant boys ages 13 to 17 in the Brownsville Walmart down in Texas. The next month they come to the table and they said, you know what? It's actually, there's going to be a laundry service that's going to be 10 million a month. There's going to be a food service that's going to be 7 million a month. There's going to be a transportation service that's going to be another 17,000 a month. And so you went from having it be 60,000 to this one NGO going and creating a bunch of sub NGOs and then billing the government for those. And because we were in a state of emergency, none of the protocols were in place. So normally, if you're going to get a government contract, they have to at least have 2 bids so that you can say, yes, I chose this company over this company because of the price or because of the service or because, the children were safer with this one. You have to justify why you're going to spend more money. When you're in a state of emergency, all of that goes out the window. So there is no protocols. So what that means is that if I'm working inside HHS and I start to learn a little bit too much, all of a sudden somebody comes to me and says, hey, Ryan, you know what? Southwest Key Programs really liked what you were doing here and how you were working and helping. They're actually thinking about starting up they need somebody to run an NGO that does dry cleaning service or a business that does dry cleaning service for the children's clothing. You could probably start a business like that and, for a couple $100,000 out of pocket, buy a couple washers and dryers and hire a couple employees at minimum wage. And you could probably bill us like $10 million for that. And go, wow. So I can leave the government. I can go start an NGO. I can go borrow money. And we got a guy that'll give you a loan. Actually, the CEO of Southwest Key Programs is actually willing to front you the money up front to start this NGO. Okay, great. So if you go through, we used AI to do this, and we cross-reference every NGO that had anything to do with receiving children, and then we cross-reference all of their employees on the board of directors, and then we cross-reference that with people that used to work inside the government. And we got about a 75% match. And that was just with the first quick little search that we did with AI. So 75% of the NGOs that are people that are sitting on the board of directors. So your board of directors, so your audience understands, any company will have a board of directors, specifically a public traded company, but private companies do as well. There's 8 members on the board of directors at most companies. The CEO at Southwest Key Programs is making about $1 million a year. The next person down in 2 is probably making $500,000 a year. And then it's 250,000. So all of these people that are sitting on the board of directors are getting money hand over fist. So a lot of these people inside of our government, if you wanted to keep them quiet or they did you a favor and looked the other way and didn't rat you out or throw you under the bus, you know what? Maybe you just magically got yourself a seat on the board of directors at one of these NGOs and now you're just making $250,000 a year and you just have to show up once a month for a vote. Like when I say the system is so rotted to the core, and we gave Trump all of this information. After my 3rd documentary, so I did What is Treason Invaded with JJ. I did What is Treason Trafficked with JJ. Then I went out and put out Operation Amber Alert America on my own. So that was my 2nd child trafficking documentary. And then I had it translated into Spanish, and within 24 hours, it got 2 million views. And the Attorney General of Guatemala was on the phone with me, trying to get me to come down there and talk about the major amount of children that had come out of Guatemala. So I told you about the 452,121 migrant children that arrived at our border over a 4-year period. 42 to 48% of them came from Guatemala. That number is about 190,023 children over a 4-year period were kidnapped and trafficked out of Guatemala and arrived at our border. That's roughly, in a population size of 15 million adults, roughly 6 to 7 million children. You're talking about 2.78% of their entire child population just vanished in thin air. That would fill up the largest stadium in America, which is the Big House Michigan Stadium, football stadium, roughly 4.5 times over, but of total children, but almost 2 times completely fill that capacity of just children from Guatemala. And they arrived at our border. That is mathematically impossible. The only way that many children vanish out of a country is if your government's involved with it. So the government was involved because we had our NGOs over there. So I get intel from the Attorney General of Guatemala that she was trying to contact Ken Paxton. She was trying to contact James Comer, Chris Wray, Merrick Garland, and saying, hey, I got a lead. I got intel, actionable intel, meaning we have the ability to raid this NGO right now, that they're these NGOs, these 5 NGOs operating in the state of Texas are also operating in the state of Guatemala, one of them being Save the Children. And we have the ability to raid them right now. And we'd like to do a joint raid. We got the dirt that they are trafficking children from Guatemala into America. They're being processed at the Texas border migratorily. And they're being placed inside facilities that are supposed to act like their parents, but inside these facilities, our children are getting abused by the employees there. And the sad part about this story is that we know that the Texas government knows that this is happening. They're allowing it to happen, and that it's actually being funded with the American taxpayer dollars. So we'd like your response, and we're willing to do whatever is necessary to protect our children in Guatemala. And that's why you're hearing the stories about Trump trying to send these children back to Guatemala, because, you know, it's true. It was all true. Everything that we reported on was true. And so it goes unanswered. So that's why she called me. And the attorney general or any government, Trump appoints ambassadors to these countries, right? The ambassador is supposed to be a direct line of communication so that the attorney general of Guatemala, if she needs to talk to the attorney general of America because she's got a lead that there's some children are getting trafficked, she can go right to her ambassador and say, hey, here's what we got. The ambassador goes right to our administration, goes, great. And it should be a seamless process, right? It should be like, right. Oh, you got intel? Let's save these kids. Whatever it takes, we're saving these kids. Well, all of that went unanswered. Okay. When that went unanswered, she said, F it after 2.5 weeks. We're not going to let these kids keep getting trafficked. We're going to raid them. And she raided them. 2 weeks later, it's actually 10 days later, Anthony Blinken takes a surprise trip to Guatemala. Now, to not get too deep in the story, in 2023, USAID rigged the election in Guatemala. We made them install all new voting machines called Trump voting. And magically, on election night and polling night, the machines went down. For 8 hours, come back online, and the man that nobody ever heard of was in last place, somehow magically comes back and wins the election. So we install this guy as president. This guy runs his entire campaign on, I'm going to get the attorney general of Guatemala fired. Just like Letitia James ran her entire campaign on, I'm going to get Trump fired. This woman ran her entire campaign on, I'm going to get the attorney general fired. So Blinken takes a surprise trip, not a planned trip, 10 days after she raids the foundation, Save the Children, and holds a press conference with this president, talking about what a great job he's done on his anti-corruption campaign, which means like his campaign to try to get this attorney general fired. But Guatemala is a really corrupt country. But the plus side is we got billions of dollars worth of investors, probably $2 billion right now that's looking to come in and invest in Guatemala because it's a beautiful country and there's so many opportunities down here. But if you guys can't get rid of this corruption problem, we don't know if you're going to get the money. So basically, we got $2 billion bounty. If you guys that you can skim off the top from, if you guys are able to figure out a way to get rid of this attorney general, basically there's a $2 billion bounty on the head for you. Just like Joe Biden went to Ukraine at Burisma. And if you don't get the prosecutor fired, well, you ain't getting the money. Right. Blinken goes, well, if you don't get the attorney general fired, you ain't getting the money. And luckily, because so many of us caught on to it, and the guy who does all this stuff with Starbucks, Robbie Starbuck, broke the story like almost in real time, instantaneously. And what that did is it helped us allow us to like back the attorney general and prevent this from happening. But why is that important? So Save the Children in 2017. So this is an NGO, and I think they're in 59 countries or 72 countries, something crazy like that. They're all over. They're an international organization that's supposed to take in war-torn and refugee children and help give them a better life, find them adoption, right? Traffic them. And in 2017, Jill Biden's elected to the board of directors at Save the Children. Save the Children in 1984 is doing fundraisers with Ghislaine Maxwell and Robert Maxwell. In 2001, they're doing something with the Clinton Foundation. In 2004 with the Clinton Foundation. In 2007 with the Obama administration. In 2009 or 12, under the Obama administration, they were running some fake vaccine campaign thing in Pakistan, and Save the Children gets wrapped up in that. In 17, they're working with Oprah. In 18, they're working with Harvey Weinstein, right? So pick every single person that you would assume or we think we have an idea that was on the Epstein list. And they've pretty much been involved with this organization, Save the Children. In 2017, Jill Biden becomes the board of directors of this. And they get raided in Guatemala for trafficking children from Guatemala into Mexico or into Texas. We have all the dirt on it. And Ken Paxton doesn't answer that response. Mm-hmm. What is going on here? In there, so this gets crazier, right? So then I go and make a documentary on this just to prove everything. The election fraud, and I actually made 2 documentaries on Guatemala, Operation Amber Alert Guatemala, and then Operation Amber Alert Regime Change. So the first one talks about and explains everything I said here about the trafficking children. The second one is everything about rigging the election and how it worked. Because Guatemala is in person, same day paper ballots. But after they fill out the ballots, all of that was good. They take the ballots, they count them up, and they're supposed to fill out this tabulator. And then this one tally sheet at each location, and then that tally sheet gets uploaded into a machine. So you can figure out a way to swap out those ballots before they go into the machine. When they get uploaded to the machine, all of a sudden you've won an election. So that's basically what this TREP system was doing, was uploading all the things. And so after all these tabulators were all uploaded, 92.3% of them were fraudulent. So they have a constitution and laws that says, hey, you have to have the social security number, 3 members of the election committee you know, that the executive, the vice president, and the third in command, the secretary, they're the people that are counting the votes. When they fill out the thing, they have to certify it and say, like, yes, they have to sign their signature. They have to basically put their social security number, and they have to check. There's like 14 things that you have to do, and it has to be done properly. And if not, the ballot's considered void. Well, they upload these to a cloud where all of the citizens of Guatemala can see them. So within 24 hours of the election, we started to realize that they weren't filled out right. And if they're not filled out right, they have to be labeled as fraud. And then it goes to the Electoral College, and the Electoral College is supposed to go, well, these aren't good. You know, these are not legit. We got to, if over 33% of them are fraudulent, they're supposed to void out the election. They're supposed to do an emergency re-election. All of that happened. Never did the re-election because we had taken over the Electoral College already. We had used the USAID to install people in the Electoral College. Nobody really thought or realized how important that position was. And you have a bunch of radical leftists that run it, and it was rotted to the core and corrupt. So that's how we rigged the election. And in that process, I started getting a pretty big name for myself in Guatemala. Guatemala is a really corrupt country. And I can't even describe who it was, but it was somebody. And they tell me that they got a hard drive, but they can't give it to me. They can't tell me what's on it over the phone, but they want to come and sit down and do an interview with me. And they want to tell me. And then after the interview, they're not going to talk about anything that's on the hard drive in the interview, but after the interview, they're going to hand me this hard drive, and I'm going to really want it. So I get this hard drive, and I'm so afraid to even come back into America with it that I end up flying into El Salvador to break the story, because I'm like, they're probably listening to my phone. They probably know that I have something. What is it? So I get the offshore bank accounts of Todd Robinson. He was the ambassador to Guatemala. This dude's doing $1 million transactions in offshore bank accounts, not one, but like 4 offshore bank accounts. I get the offshore bank accounts to the previous attorney general of Guatemala and like 7 different people inside the Guatemalan government. I have all their offshore bank account records. I come back with all of this, including a declassified report, which was done by basically their equivalent of the Secret Service in Guatemala. So at one point, the president of Guatemala had his internal team do an investigation into Todd Robinson. And in this report, it says that Todd Robinson's a raging alcoholic. He's gay as can be, as gay as a $3 bill. He has 2 boyfriends, one at the embassy and then one from America, or one from Guatemala and one at the American embassy. He treats his employees like shit. He'll be driving down the road and take a phone call, and it'll be 110 degrees out, and he'll make everybody in the car get outside the car and stand there in the heat while he sits there in the AC with the car running. And there's not a party or anywhere where he's not drinking or involved with drinking. And then he also throws these parties at his house. I call them Diddy style freak-offs because they would last for 2 to 3 days. And anybody that's, played video games as a kid all night at 12 years old, you stay up all night gaming with your friends. You're like, yeah, I'm pulling an all-nighter. The next day at noon, you're crashed out on the couch because you can't keep your eyes open, right? So nobody parties for 3 days without drugs. So he's throwing these Diddy style freak-off parties where he's having the cartels, because the age of consent in Guatemala is 14, deliver 12 to 14-year-old boys to his parties like eye candy. But they were just there. The minors were just there just to look, right? They were just there to show drinks to the adults, right? Okay. One 12-year-old boy gets so sexually sodomized that he ends up being hospitalized. They sodomized this poor little 12-year-old boy so bad that he was hospitalized to the point where his mother had to go to the hospital or go to the police office and file a report. So Todd Robinson being the most powerful man in Guatemala, because when our government controls every member of your government, when Trump appoints an ambassador or Obama an appointed ambassador, that ambassador has more power than the president. So he goes and gets all the records destroyed. Allegedly, we've never seen that woman again. And allegedly, she's in Costa Rica, and she's getting paid $5,000 a month right now to just stay out of the country. They bought her off, allegedly. Well, we've never seen her, and nobody's confirmed this. So this woman and her child are now missing after filing a police report that, he got sexually sodomized at one of Todd Robinson's parties. I come back with all this, and I give it to our FBI. I publish it publicly. I get on every single news network from Redacted to Stu Peters, and I put all of that information out there on the internet. That man's still walking free today. So it's like, we, the American citizen, as independent journalists, have done so much, and we've brought so much dirt and gave so much evidence. If you just arrested one of these people, just one, bro, like that person's going to rat. Todd Robinson ain't made for prison. You tell these people that they're going to an El Salvadorian prison, and you watch them saying, you think Merrick Garland's cut out for prison? That man Merrick Garland was like the judge who oversaw the case of the Oklahoma City bombing. Right? Like this shit goes so deep and is so dark, and there is so much corruption. We have Senator Ron Johnson today at the 9/11 justice hearings. So Tucker Carlson, using his media power, and Redacted, the largest conservative news network in America, joined forces to hold a 9/11 justice hearing. So magically, Charlie Kirk gets assassinated the day before 9/11. Let that sink in. That's pretty dark, right?
Mhm.
So, because everybody online today would have been talking about how Israel did 9/11. They couldn't have that. They needed some type of news story that was going to be so big that it was going to overshadow 9/11, one of the darkest days in American history. And then magically Charlie Kirk gets assassinated and they're blaming Muslims. Okay. We sure, bro. We get that. Just like it was on 9/11, we blame the Muslims. Okay. Our government is so rotted to the core, dude, that we allow a foreign nation to carry us out terrorist attacks on USA soil. And Senator Ron Johnson basically tells us in a not so subtle way that, well, if we did, let's just say it wasn't Iraq or ISIS didn't act alone and there was another country involved. I just don't know if your government is going to be willing to admit that no matter what evidence comes out because of the ramifications that would have on a global scale. I think he referenced like what happened on 9/11 changed the course of history for our country. Well, this event, if it was like that, might have the same aftermath, the same fallout. And we don't think that our government thinks that you, the American people, can handle it or humanity is ready for it. So we just don't know if you're ever going to get the truth from our government. So our government has allowed a foreign military, a foreign agency, foreign government to have such control over our country and our government, our politics, and the Western civilization that we're going to let them slaughter 2,000 American citizens. Israel was behind 9/11. Israel was behind the bombing of and attacking a U.S. military. Those were our vets fleeing to lifeboats. And the Israeli military was launching torpedoes at them and opening fire with 50 cals, machine guns from planes, just lighting up our sailors to smithereens. And they covered it up. They assassinated the president of the United States. And now here we are. They assassinated RFK. They assassinated JFK. I'm pretty sure they played a role in MLK's assassination too. That's what these people do. And now you mean to tell me that they just blew somebody randomly, magically, this trans shooter that we haven't caught yet, somehow blew the head off Charlie or blew a bullet hole through Charlie Kirk's neck live on national TV. And the entire world watched that. It was almost like 9/11. Like we were all brought in, I don't know what grade you were in, but I was brought into my classroom in 6th grade.
First grade for me.
First grade for you. Did they put the TVs on for you?
Mm-hmm.
We all were brought in.
I can remember it like it was yesterday. Fucking 20, that would have been 24 years ago for me. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember it clear as day. I can remember the teacher and everything. I can remember the small, probably 10, 12-inch TV on the stand, looking at it and watching everybody fucking run in horror on the news.
Dude, same thing, dude. I can remember the table, the marble countertops in science class. Like that image will be burned into your head. Same with Charlie Kirk, right? That was publicized on TV. There was a reason that we all watched that, right? And we all watched it in horror. Like, was this even real?
Yeah, multiple angles. And isn't it funny? They had a visual on the shooter up on the roof. I mean, the man's neck, the amount of blood that came out. I had multiple friends that were talking about it. My wife's an EMT, and she sent me a message about it. Like her and her coworkers were talking about it. Like it looked like AI because all the fucking blood that came out of that man's neck.
Oh, dude, it was bad.
Awful.
Let me grab a water. It's just right
here.
Yeah,
you're good. You're good. Yeah. Kit, good to see you. Yeah, investors. I always love the quotations. Yeah, dude, it was absolutely horrifying. Like I didn't legitimately know if it was real or not because of just how bad that shot was. I mean, regardless of whatever agreements, disagreements you have with anybody, like no father should ever get just his neck blown out like that in front of his fucking kids. Nobody deserves that. It's so sick that you know, I think I told you before the stream, but you know, my daughter now is 5 weeks and 2 days old.
Congratulations, brother.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I couldn't imagine a world where she would witness that happen to me or, you know, heaven forbid my wife. Like that's awful stuff. And Charlie's 31. He's only a year older than me with 2 kids that are you know, I don't even think either of his kids are 5 years old. It's
His
wrong.
daughter was
It's
there.
absolutely evil. Yeah. Evil. Absolutely awful.
Dude, And we're going to sit here and watch our government cover it up.
Mhm.
The Las Vegas shooting, we look back, guarantee it was Israel. It was a gun running operation gone wrong.
Mhm.
The Vegas shooter, rumor has it, there was even a helicopter that came in, right? And there was gunmen up on a helicopter. You have to assume it's Israel, dude. It's like they are so not our ally that it's not even up for debate anymore. And this is coming from a guy who 4 years ago, I was just a Bitcoin podcaster. I knew nothing about politics. I didn't even know what the Speaker of a House was. I probably couldn't even have told you one policy that trumped any of it, dude. I didn't want to talk about it. I was just always the type of person who's just like, I don't know, dude. I don't know what to vote for. I don't pay attention to that stuff. So like, if somebody like my ex used to drag me to the polling booth, I went and voted for Trump, but like it was because she drugged me there. Like I didn't know. I didn't care about politics. I didn't understand until 2020 when the government shut down our country. And I had been working, like I don't have come from a rich family. Like I worked from the bootstraps, built myself up, went and I remember when my son was born, I took a job at a factory as a temporary employee because I knew that they would pay for my college. I just had to get hired in. And I was literally working 80 hours a week, scrubbing floors. Like it's a line shut down. I was over there like with a Windex bottle, like wiping a floor with a rag, just because I knew if I was standing around and the boss saw me standing around or talking, I would get fired. So I can't afford to lose this job. I got to make a life for my kid. And I worked my freaking ass off, got up to the next position, got hired in, got promoted immediately because I was such a hard worker. They started paying for my school to go to college, become a controls engineer. And within like 3 years, went from $10 an hour to $30 an hour. And I was just doing everything I could to make my life better for my son. But in that time, you started to get a little extra cash. I started to realize like, oh, like I actually just started on Amazon and I was spending so much money on Amazon. That's kind of when Prime kind of first became a thing back then. And like we were all like so excited to order things and you're just addicted to shopping online. There was wish.com. So I had eBay and I was selling like stupid shit on eBay. So I had a little knowledge of it. And then I realized that I could get these things on Wish. Like they were like Harley Davidson bracelets for like $1. And I could sell them for $10 on eBay. And I was getting like these water bottle tumblers for $5 and I was selling them for $15. Next thing I know, I'm selling so much stuff that Wish keeps canceling my accounts because I'm drop shipping like 80 items a day through Wish. Then I found a supplier in China who can manufacture the bottles and I started getting them manufactured. Next thing I know, I'm doing this side hustle. And then that turned into me building an EDM clothing line. And I became the fastest growing EDM clothing line in America by 2019. So going into 2020, I've been working about anywhere between like 60 hours a week at my job and then 20 to 40 hours additional building this business, working my ass off, get this business, finally to a point. And I had always worked at Thai Summit at the time. And so I didn't need to spend any money for my business. Everything extra I made, I was just launching new products. And I built this Amazon business. I built a whole business model around Amazon because everything orders from China, ships directly from China into Amazon. There's software that you can automate the process. So Amazon's really good at telling you when you're going to run out of a product in 30 days. So it gives you the alert and says, hey, you're going to sell roughly 150 of this, keychain in the next 30 days, or in the next 6 months, you're going to sell X amount, 2,000. It would create me a purchase order. And then the purchase order automatically was attached to my supplier's email. So once it hit that alert go off, it would give her a quantity and it would automatically send her out the quantity. So then she would actually take that invoice, review it. Maybe fabric went up by 10 cents or a penny or whatever it was. She would adjust the invoice and she would email it back to me. I would get on PayPal, log in, pay my invoice, and that's it. And then I would go back on Amazon. I would get some barcodes set up for the products and I would send her the barcodes. And then she would have the barcodes put on the products and she'd have them shipped into Amazon. So I was literally able to run a multi-million-dollar business. My business at its peak was doing $125,000 a month. The month that COVID hit, February, well, it actually nobody really knew it was here till March, but it was February when I was doing $125,000 a month in sales, working 4 hours a week. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. When you own a clothing company, if I create a tank top that sells in black, I just make it in blue and then in purple and then the 5 different colors that sell well. And then all of a sudden next thing I know, I launched over 1,000 products in a year on Amazon. And I'm doing $125,000 a month in sales. I did everything right. I was partying when I was young, did a bunch of stupid, crazy stuff. And then my son was born. I immediately became an adult. And I said, okay, you got to get a good job. You got to go to school. You got to put money into your 401k. You got to start a side hustle now because for some reason I went from $10 an hour to $30 an hour over like a 4-year period. But my standard of living never really changed. Now, granted, I didn't have any debt. I bought my own place at that time and had a new car. But like my overall, like I wasn't saving a lot more money. I was putting more money in my 401k, but I wasn't really saving any personal money. So I was like, okay, so now I got to start a side hustle. But I didn't really understand that it was because our government was devaluing our currency, right? I thought that just, I don't know. I couldn't really put 2 and 2 together. I didn't understand how politics worked. And then when they shut down our government, and shut down our business. My business is 100% dependent on parties, events, mass public gatherings. Like, yeah, I sold some bikinis and some bandanas and stuff that people might wear. But most of my clothing was specifically designed because, Gary Vee told me to create a niche. You want to sell a product that's not going to be sold in Walmart, right? So it's like, okay, Walmart's not going to sell these booby tassels, or they're not going to sell like this skimpy bikini, right? Like, or they're not going to sell this, I don't know, this checkerboard bandana, whatever it was, right? This goofy hat that says like Rave Life on it or whatever. So I thought I had built the perfect business, thought I did everything right. And then in 2020, I went from doing $120,000 a month in sales in February, 125,000, to the next month, -5. Because everybody that ordered all the stuff to go to the rave season that was kicking off decided that, oh, there's no raves. The government shut everything down. So they wanted to return all of that merchandise. So I had literally $100,000 in returns come in over a month period. And I took a $5,000 L. And that's when I had all my exit. I had just quit my job like a year before that. So this was my solid business. I had saved up, I cashed out my 401k, put all that into Bitcoin. Luckily, that was the saving grace of this whole moral of the story, right? Like, Bitcoin saved me from being homeless, and it saved my life, and it allowed me to provide a child for my future. That, like, it was the best thing I ever did. I keep 100% of my wealth in Bitcoin right now. I keep 3 months of bills in the bank, and that is it. If that, I live as fiat poor as possible. I eat raw eggs and I drink my breakfast every day so I can buy more Bitcoin. Anytime I get the chance and I'm hungry and there's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I'll choose to eat that over whatever else I can go eat. I won't go out to eat because I just want to buy more Bitcoin. And that's really been what has allowed me to exponentially change my life for the better. I was screaming it when Bitcoin was 17,500 this summer, like, guys, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. I was screaming at 45 on LFA TV. My second week on LFA TV, I did a specific show on Bitcoin because Bitcoin was like $20,000. I was saying, guys, like, this is it. This is bottoms in. Cash out your 401k, put it all into Bitcoin, but nobody really listened. I had a few people that did, and now they're like, they're really on track to retire here in a couple of years. So, moral of that story is, like, our government really hates you. That they're not here. They're not coming to save you. Trump's not coming to save you, right? Our country is going through some really dark times, and what's happening with the U.S. dollar? So we have the Japanese bond market imploding, and what that means is that the bond rate, the yield on the bonds, the Japanese yen specifically, is kind of collapsing. So Japan is trying to basically take dollars out of circulation. So they're selling off the US securities. That's it. So the yield rate on our securities is tanking, right? And they're taking that money and they're going and buying yen, trying to take currency out of supply so that these citizens aren't feeling the crushing weight of this inflation. So that's causing the yield rate to spike on the treasuries. Now, all of the big hedge funds and these mega insurance corporations knew that the Japanese yen, it's like the Kimpi trade. It was a really good access to get capital. You could borrow basically yen from Japan, and you could get that yen at 1% or 2% or a 3% interest rate. And you're talking about, let's just say it's $1 billion. At $1 billion at a 5% interest rate, right? You're making like what, $50 million a year off that. So then they're taking that and they're using that as a collateralized asset because they have this $1 billion worth of the yen. They go then collateralize that as an asset and they borrow again. They take a loan out on top of the yen, right? And then they use that to go buy and make more investments. And they were buying securities, right? So because the yield rate on the securities is tanking, the people that borrowed out against it, their return on investments actually at a loss. So they're starting to sell off their securities. And it's creating this flywheel where they're selling off securities because it's the yield rate spiking on US treasuries. They're selling off their treasuries because the yield rate's spiking on treasuries. And and nobody's buying these bonds. And it's creating this debt spiral, right? And Trump can't stop it. So Trump's talking about all these investments coming in. But the inflation's still at 2.7%. Under the Trump's when he left last time, there was 0% inflation. Like, he had that shit on lock. And then COVID hit, and all of a sudden we went up to what, like 9 or 10%. And that's year over year. So that means that if you paid, let's just say it was $1 for a dozen eggs, the next year eggs go up to $2. That's 100% inflation rate, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't ever do it just on one item. It's always on like a basket of items, which is like a scam. But the next year, if it goes from $1, so it went from $1 to 10. The next year, if it only goes from 10 to 11, that's only a 10% inflation rate.
Right, but it doesn't account for the compounding inflation from years before.
100%, right? So, they could say whatever they want about inflation, but we're getting 2.7%. That's year over year. So it was 2.7% last year, 2.7. It was actually 10%. And then the year later, it was down to like 6. That's 16%. Then it's 2.7%. So that's technically like 18.7%. And that's just what they tell us. That's not even the real inflation numbers. That's in their basket of goods. So we know that it's even higher than that. So the bond market's imploding. And if this actually imploded, right, what does that look like? That makes '08 look like a walk in the park. And that's just one thing. Then we have the commercial real estate bubble that's exploding here in America. Then we also have $37 trillion in debt, and we don't have anybody that's buying treasuries. So at the same time, China's also selling treasuries. So there's no buyer for treasuries. And without a buyer for treasuries, the United States can't really print all of this money out of thin air. We can't refinance our debt at a lower cost if they're not dropping interest rates, and you can't drop interest rates if you don't have inflation under control. Right. So we're in a really bad position right now. And the only person who's buying treasuries are stable coins. That's why Trump's going so pro crypto, because in order to buy stable coins, or in order to be a stablecoin company in America and be registered and regulated, you have to have a certain percentage of your balance sheet be in treasuries. So right now at Bitcoin let's just say it's $100,000, and let's just say it has a $2 trillion market cap. We'll just completely round to keep it really simple. I think it's like 2.3 trillion or something like that, but we'll just say it's 2 trillion. And there's roughly let's just say there's let's just do really simple math and say there's every 2 trillion for Bitcoin's market cap, there's 1 trillion in stable coins. They're able to go and buy 500 billion in treasuries. They have to keep those on the balance sheet. So as everything trades with Bitcoin, you have to trade Bitcoin for a stable coin, right? And vice versa. So those are what's called liquidity pools. So if I have $1 million in Bitcoin in one pool, I have to have $1 million of the USDT. And then I swap 100,000 in Bitcoin, and now I have 1.1 million in Bitcoin. I have 900,000 in the USDT, and vice versa. So as Bitcoin goes up in value, we need liquidity in the stable coins to go up as well. Does that make sense? So that allows the stable coins to create more stable coins, and then they use that money to go and buy treasuries off the market. So right now, the only hope that we have for the US dollar is our government literally announcing that the Federal Reserve is going to print dollars to buy Bitcoin. And what that does is it triggers every Federal Reserve around the world to do the same. And what we want as Americans is we want Bitcoin to hit anywhere between like $2, $5 to $10 million a coin, would basically introduce roughly another $20 trillion in liquidity for these stablecoins, 15 to 20 trillion. So the only thing that basically saves Bitcoin is Bitcoin going to at least $1 million. Sorry, if it went to 20 million a coin, you would introduce probably 30 or 40 trillion. It could basically completely take over it could basically buy all the treasuries out. It could stabilize the US dollar, and it could potentially save America. Now, I say this because the Russian, basically the head of their Federal Reserve, if you will, basically held a press conference last week, and he's like, the United States did this in 42 with the Bretton Woods Agreement and the petrodollar. Then in the 70s, when Germany in the 60s came and did a gold call, and said, hey, we got all these dollars, we want our gold back, give us that gold. It was going to basically collapse the US dollar. So then Nixon takes us off the gold standard, and we basically skate out of it again. And now here we are at $37 trillion in debt, and we don't have any buyer for the treasury. Nobody looks at America right now and goes, yeah, we want to invest in America. Oh, wait, Trump just signed a trade deal with Japan, $550 billion. Yeah. And then 3 days later, the president of Japan had to resign, and we don't know why. Maybe because his country was like, why the hell are you investing $550 billion of our money in America when you could be doing it here in Japan? Like, that makes no sense, right? And so what you see here is we're in a really bad position. And the best thing that your audience can do is take the time to understand what Bitcoin is, how it works. It's going to take you 20 hours of just studying it. Just go home, watch the Michael Saylor, Robert Breedlove podcast. It's a series called the Saylor series. It'll take you about 20 hours to finish it. After that 20 hours, you'll want to pawn your wife's wedding ring to get more Bitcoin. Like, it'll radicalize you, and you'll really understand what Bitcoin is from a first principle standpoint. If you want to build a plane, right? You want a plane to fly. You're not going to build it out of steel, okay? Because it's going to crash. You're not going to build it out of wood because it might break, right? You're going to build it out of like high-end titanium, and aluminum because it's light, it's protective, and blah, 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 blah. When you're talking about money, right? You want to understand what money is from a first principle standpoint, and they do it better than anybody. And then after 20 hours of actually just listening to podcasts, you're going to go, I kind of have an idea of what this Bitcoin thing is supposed to be. And then it's going to take you another 100 hours to learn how to buy, sell, and trade. Now, you can watch a YouTube video in 15 minutes and learn how to buy, but I tell everybody, spend the 20 hours first. Bitcoin's not going to be $1 million tomorrow, we don't think. So you got a little bit of time. Understand it. then go buy $100 worth and make sure you can send it from one wallet to the next. Make sure you can actually get it off that exchange, right? And then once you can actually physically get it off an exchange into a wallet that you own and you understand how the keys work, then you can go and put your whole 401k into it, right? And that's what you should do. People are like, oh, bro, I got a 25% fee. I got to pay on my 401k. I think when I cashed mine out, it was a 30% fine. I paid a 30% fine to invest in an asset that at the minimum over a 4-year period goes up by 28%. So the worst 4 performing years of Bitcoin in its entire history, the average return on investment every year is 28%. And you got to think of that just like you think of inflation. So if you put in $100,000 today, in 1 year, you got 1.28 million. Then 1.28 million at 28% is what? It's like 1.41 million. Then at 1.41 million turns into 1.7 million. And then by year 4, you have like 2.1 million. So your 1 million turned into literally 2.4 million over a 4-year period at a 28% return on investment. If you put $1 million in your bank today, 4 years from now, what do you have? Well, I don't know, but you have the ability to purchase a lot less.
Yes.
Your haircut that used to cost $5 when you were a kid now costs $30. And what's changed? The clippers are the same, the barber chairs are the same, the amount of employees in the place are the same. The value of the US dollar is collapsing in real time. If you buried $1 million in the backyard today, 100 years from now, whoever your great grandkid that dug that money up out of the ground wouldn't even be able to buy a new iPhone. They would be able to buy $891 worth of stuff in today's industry.
Yeah, man.
That's a lot to unpack, man. I've been talking a lot, so sorry.
No, man, you're good. You're good. And I know you said about an hour and a half. We're a little bit over, so I really appreciate your time. I got I had Natalie Brunell on for my first, I want to say my first 40 episodes. Yes. And we're talking, but I have Safety and Amos. We're gonna schedule something here sooner or later. So we follow each other on Twitter and sometimes go back and forth. So I have to get him on. Yeah, Ryan, this has been awesome, man. We really hit everything I wanted to hit and much more. You're a complete and total machine, dude. So let's end on a high note. What gives you hope? And yeah, God, what do you got hope about?
So, like I said, I'm doing the real estate stuff in El Salvador, and I've partnered, or I've just been helping this. When I first went down there, my first documentary was getting released. I met a gentleman named Bob McDowell. Bob runs a child trafficking rescue organization in El Salvador where he takes in homeless girls, basically any age, basically 1 all the way up to 17. Same thing with boys. He's got about 30 girls and 30 boys that he can fit in this one house. And then he started what's called the House of Life. The House of Life takes in raped pregnant teens. Now in El Salvador, a lot of these women have been raped by their fathers, their uncles, their brothers, and they're impregnated. And abortions are legal, so they have to keep the baby. And a lot of these girls show up at his house like wanting to punch their stomach, and like they're torn apart. They don't want their kid. And within 2 weeks of being in this environment, they fall in love with their child. They fall in love with life. And for the first time in their life, they have a man in their life that treats them like his daughter. And they got house mom there, so the women tweet them like they're her mother. And these kids get a complete restart on life, and they get to raise their children in this organization. It was going bankrupt. I met him in November. In December, he couldn't make payroll, and he had to make double payroll in December because you had to pay your employees twice as much. And we released my documentary on November 25th, and the love and the American people in our audience and everybody around the world, we raised over $30,000 for them by like December 6th. They were able to make payroll, and that caught the attention of Nicole Shanahan. She went down there and did a really nice stuff for them. Since then we've raised over, our goal is to get 14 Bitcoin in a treasury, because how I explained how Bitcoin works is his operational costs are $100,000 a year. If I can raise 14 Bitcoin at 1.4 million, that would allow him to run his operation for 4 years and pay the 100,000, and he would still have $1 million in that treasury. Now I explained, how Bitcoin goes up and up and up over a 4-year period. Then after that, every year you could take out 100,000 and pay your bills, and you're always going to have more than that because you're going to make, roughly 2.8 or 280,000 every year in interest for that 2.8, right? So every time Bitcoin goes up by 100%, like the foundation that he has right now, it takes in 21 girls and it can have 21 kids, or a little bit over. If a girl has 2 kids, you can come with both of her kids, but roughly 21 girls and 21 children, $100,000 a year operational cost. We've already got 1.7 Bitcoin that we've now raised for them. Once we hit that target, every time Bitcoin doubles in size, we're going to be able to double the House of Life. We're going to be able to go from 1 that takes in 21 to 2. And then if it doubles again, 2 to 4. Then it doubles again, 4 to 8. 8 to 16, 16 to 32, 32 to 64. We need about 54 of these across the entire country of El Salvador, which I think we're going to do by 2030. and we're going to save every single sex trafficked child out about 90%, about 95 to 99%, because you can never prevent the parents that are going to traffic their kids, right? Like that's always impossible. So you will have those rare cases. But I think, even by 2036, I think El Salvador will have such a high standard of living and the punishment will be so harsh that if you basically, have sex with your stepdaughter and she's underage and she gets pregnant and she goes to the hospital, they want to know who the father is. So if she says, it's so-and-so, Bukele's administration literally goes to that man's house, arrests him. He's going to do 20 years pretty much almost instantly. Like they'll have a court hearing, but when you got DNA evidence like that, it's really quick. It's like he's in prison immediately and the girl never has to see him or deal with it again. So we're going to save every sex trafficked child in an entire country. And then once we do it in El Salvador, all eyes are already on El Salvador right now. Once we do it in El Salvador, we're going to force other countries to do it as well. And we're going to literally change the entire world. So that's what I look forward to every day. That's why I'm trying to put a lot of my time and resources. I'm trying to build the largest media outlet in El Salvador to make sure that no other media outlets come in there and sabotage what Bukele's been doing.
Beautiful. Yeah, that is a really good high note to end on too, because we talk about some dark stuff throughout the last about hour and 3/4. Ryan, this has been absolutely fantastic, and I feel like this is probably gonna be another one of those shows that I should like breeze back through because we covered a lot of stuff, man. So it's been an absolute pleasure. Where can everybody find you, support you, and keep up with all your amazing work?
Yeah, man. Ryan Matta Media over on X, Ryan Matta on Rumble. And then I started a new YouTube channel, which if you guys want to see these crazy adventures, like we didn't even get into Mexico. I was in Mexico about 2 months ago, digging up dead bodies, literally going to mass graves and digging up skulls and stuff in the ground. It's all on my YouTube channel at Ryan Matta Films. That's about it, man. Appreciate it, Kyle. And I look forward to coming back. Anytime you want to have me back on, anytime crazy stuff goes down or I get break any news stories. I do have a documentary on CPS that's coming out in about 3 weeks. So hopefully your audience will give a gander at that. We're going to talk about, we didn't touch on CPS, which is now our government running the actual largest child trafficking network that the world has ever seen of American children are getting kidnapped by American parents. So yeah, God bless you, brother.
Thank you. Well, yeah, we got a lot to catch up on then for a second show. Right, it's been an absolute blast. Everybody, thank you so much. As I said a little bit during the beginning of the show, if you're in the southwestern Pennsylvania area, come check out A Common Crown playing with Hinder this weekend. It's going to be a good time.
Let's go.
And yeah, I guess with that, we'll call her a night. All right, everybody,
God bless you, brother.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
Thank you. You too.